So video games create a unique opportunity for the horror genre in that they allow the player to directly put themselves in the shoes of the protagonist. But trust me, you probably won't want to be donning those rather poo-filled boots because, well, just look what you're up against. So let's take a look at these horrible creatures. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are the 8 scariest video game monsters. Number 8. Pyramid Head, Silent Hill. In Silent Hill 2, Pyramid Head is meant to be the physical embodiment of the main character's guilt, becoming the executioner that will bring him to justice. And oh boy, if he isn't the most terrifying executioner ever. Everything about Pyramid Head screams good horror design. The blood-covered bulging muscles, the butcher's apron, and of course, the giant red pyramid, which clearly causes him immense amounts of pain. But where Pyramid Head's character truly shines, however, is in the first few encounters the player has with it. The first time James Sunderland meets Pyramid Head, the monster isn't actually aggressive towards him. James only sees him lurking behind a gate, as if waiting for him to make one wrong move. The second time, Pyramid Head shows off his lethal prowess by massacring 2 other monsters with little to no effort, all the while James is terrified and looking for a safe place to hide. Each encounter with Pyramid Head reveals more and more of its ruthlessness and power. When the player is finally forced to confront it, they know all too well what the monster is capable of, and that makes them all the more terrified of what his punishment for James might be. Number 7. The Gatherer, AMNESIA: The Dark Descent. In AMNESIA, the main protagonist, Daniel, is trapped in the mansion of a callous and sadistic baron, with no memories and only a note telling him to kill the mansion's owner. The game uses the mechanic of sanity to create a feeling of tension and unease. Disturbing imagery and darkness cause the main character to lose his sanity, eventually turning him into a mind-broken mess. This is where the Gatherer comes in, a grotesquely malformed monster that chases you around the mansion and makes sure that nowhere is truly safe. Although his stretched out maw and bloodied claws are more than enough to keep you up at night, the sanity mechanic gives him an additional edge, which makes every encounter with it all the more suspenseful. Because your sanity decreases when your eyes stumble upon his freaky visage, you can't really look at it, yet because you lose sanity in the dark as well, you can't hide from it either. The sanity mechanic adds depth to the character of the Gatherer that it wouldn't have been able to achieve on its own. With the addition of a system that establishes stakes, when looking at the monster, each time the Gatherer is on the hunt, you know it'll only be a moment before you go mad or the monster catches you. Number 6. The Wendigos, Until Dawn. Until Dawn is a great story-driven horror game where the player tries to guide a group of friends through the night and keep as many of them alive as possible. The game is full of twists and action sequences to keep you on your toes, but the most intense and action-packed moment of the game has to be the final showdown between the survivors and the Wendigos that are trying to kill them. The game's finale happens in the mansion on top of the mountain, a mere hour before the rescue helicopter comes in to rescue whoever is left alive. The exhausted survivors try to stay there until help arrives, but unfortunately for them, the monsters that were chasing them the entire night have the same idea. Pale, tall, with lanky arms and a set of sharp teeth capable of tearing a person's head off in a second. As if their appearance wasn't creepy enough, the game does a great job of highlighting their intimidating presence with its game mechanics, especially during the final scene. The Wendigos are the perfect type of horror enemy. A blind monster like the Wendigo fits perfectly into a game with mechanics revolving around staying quiet and holding your breath, as it allows these types of sequences to establish real stakes. Additionally, because the game is so heavily reliant on quick-time events, the monster has to be quick and nimble to make any chase sequence feel intense. The slightest mistake during quick-time events can cost you your favourite survivor, as the Wendigos are extremely fast. They can't see too well, but their hearing is great, so if you can't keep the survivors from breathing, they won't hesitate to immediately lunge and rip them apart. Number 5. The Baby, Resident Evil Village. Resident Evil Village features a whole entourage of villains and monsters who chase Ethan Winters around, including everyone's favourite, the old tall vampire lady. Amidst such a wide range of monsters, it might seem hard to think of one that is actually the scariest, but in reality, you have to look no further than Ethan Winters' very own daughter. In the house of one of the main villains, Ethan begins to hallucinate due to plants infected with the A virus. He suddenly hears the sound of a baby crying, thinking it's his lost daughter, but what he encounters instead is a grotesque fetus-like monster with a wide toothless mouth and red slimy body. As Ethan is running away from it, he doesn't have any weapons to defend himself. He can only retreat to safety before the monster catches him and swallows him whole. As hideously deformed as the baby is, the most disturbing part of it is the sounds it makes. These types of noises are not only disturbing coming from a giant murderous monster, but they also fit in with what is happening with the story. The entire game revolves around Ethan searching for his daughter, and the hallucination is a really twisted way of flipping this narrative on its head. When the monster arrives, it is suddenly Ethan that the baby is searching for, and not to reunite with her father. His own child, whom Ethan wanted to protect, becomes a monster and he has to run away from it. And this adds a level of despair to the situation, which makes the baby such an effective method at traumatizing the player. Number 4. The XENOMORPH, Alien Isolation. If you ever wondered what Ripley felt while aboard the Nostromo, look no further than Alien Isolation. Set in the universe of the Alien movies, the game follows Ripley's daughter Amanda as she's trapped inside a spaceship with a very similar monster that her mother had fought in the past. The alien in Isolation is a brilliant recreation of the original. Its AI intelligently follows Amanda around, using a variety of tactics to catch her by surprise, and no two encounters feel the same, making your attempts to hide and distract all the more intense. On top of that, the sound design of the alien is perfect for creating moments of high suspense. As you're hiding behind a counter or slipping into an empty vent, you'll hear the Xeno's distinct clicking and hissing getting closer and closer. Everyone who's watched the original movie has a distinct image of what the alien should be, a cunning creature that stalks its victims and takes them by surprise. If encounters with the Xeno were scripted and the monster had less autonomy in how it went about hunting its prey, it simply wouldn't have been so effective at meeting the player's expectations. Number 3. The Janitor, Little Nightmares. Now, Little Nightmares is an interesting horror game, as even the main character is somewhat creepy and monster-like, something the player discovers the longer they play. But the Janitor, though, is a malformed monster with unnaturally long arms, short legs, and skin flaps that seem to have come off his skull to render him blind. Although his condition might make it seem as if he would be easier to deal with, in reality, the blindness of the Janitor is what makes him the most terrifying enemy, as his ears compensate for his lack of sight. As the player tries to hide, the Janitor will slide his grotesque arms into every nook and cranny and snatch the first thing he hears. This makes every moment that he's on screen a truly terrifying experience, as you can never be truly certain if you hadn't done something to alert him to your presence. The reason the Janitor works as a fear-inducing pursuer is how he ties into his surroundings. The first stage of the game takes place in the bottom decks of the moor, which are filled to the brim with tools, boxes, and little knickknacks, all of which make a lot of noise, and therefore every new room you enter feels like the perfect trap set for the Janitor to hear you. The two of you begin to play a dangerous game of cat and mouse, which actually complements the Janitor's lack of eyesight as opposed to working against him, and it is terrifying. Number 2. Chris STRONGFAT Walker, Outlast. Outlast is one of the most intense horror games out there. Each chase sequence pumps your veins full of adrenaline, and every situation where you have to hide makes you anticipate the moment that your hunter finds you with held breath. The game takes place in an insane asylum, where an outbreak of a supernatural virus has mutated the patients and caused them to start killing everyone. And one of the first antagonists of the game is Chris STRONGFAT Walker, who is the physical embodiment of the dreadful atmosphere of the Mount Massive Asylum. He is a burly ex-military inmate who has mutated beyond recognition and murders everyone in sight with beast-like savagery. Once again, the reason why Walker's terrifying presence stands out amidst the cast of Outlast's villains is the way in which his character synergizes with the mechanics of the game. Not only is Walker a relentless pursuer, he's also the master of keeping you on your toes as you're trying to hide. While searching, he will try to taunt you, call you a little pig, and mutter to himself about all the gruesome ways in which he'll maim you. His voice becomes increasingly more daunting as he approaches your hiding spot, and when he finally checks a locker or looks under a bed, you better hope he chooses the wrong one. And number 1, Nemesis, Resident Evil 3. Everyone who has played Resident Evil 3 or its remake will remember all too well how much of a menace Nemesis was. As soon as it enters the screen, it is nearly impossible to get away. He chases you throughout the entire map, and your strongest weapons can at best just slow him down. As if that wasn't enough, each new encounter with Nemesis is even more intense than the last, as the Umbrella Super Soldier keeps coming up with new ways to hunt down his target. If he can't snap you in half with his bare hands, he'll fry you alive with the flamethrower on its back, and if the flamethrower fails, he's capable of infecting other zombies with his strain of the virus, turning them into supercharged murder machines. Nemesis might be the epitome of an effective horror game villain. His design and in-game characteristics build him up as a force to be reckoned with, which is then further complemented by his behavior and how each encounter is introduced. First off, Nemesis is designed to never stop chasing you until you are dead, meaning that once he's on screen, well, you can't get rid of him. Obviously, the game's designers realized that the best way to utilize this behavior is by making Nemesis appear during the least convenient moments, making them 10 times more stressful as a result. Nemesis fully delivers on that name, and thanks to these two top choices made by the developers, they turned the Nemesis into a truly relentless villain. And there we go, my friends. Those were the 8 scariest video game monsters. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on Twitter at RetroJ, but the O is a 0, or you can swing by Instagram, where it's the same handle, RetroJ, but the O is a 0. Hope to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. Hope you're treating yourself well with love and respect, my friend, because you bloody well deserve it, alright? You are a massive ledge, alright? And I want you to go out there with a bit of positivity in your heart to get through their day. And if you're able to, I want you to smash your life goals as well, because I bloody believe in you and you need to believe in yourself as well. As always, I've been Jules. You have been awesome. Never forget that. I'll speak to you soon.